Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we'll be discussing the Week 7 results of the 2025 season of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website or on Discord. We would love to have you. So, as always, we're going to dive into all of the stats and summaries from the Week 7 games, culminating in my choices for the players of the week. We'll do a quick injury update and look at the NFL standings. And then our feature today is a first look at extensions. Extensions won't be open for a few more weeks at least, but it's something I've been delving into a lot with the rest of the NFL owners. And so I want to take a first look at that. Some of the big names who are going to be up for big extensions, some of the teams that might be facing a cap crunch and what we might want to look out for, and just some other things regarding all the new features and rules that we've added. So we'll take a dive into that, and then we will end with our preview for next week and look at the bigs coming up in each of the time slots. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. There was a big upset on Thursday Night Football as one of our remaining unbeatens lost for the first time, with the Bills beating the Packers 43-23. This one got off to a fast start. The teams scored on their first 5 combined possessions, Buffalo taking a 13-10 lead there. The big play was a 43-yard touchdown bomb from Asensio to Donald Kelly, his first of many on the day. It was 16-13, Buffalo still leading in the second half when they blocked a Packers punt, which led to an additional field goal. Then in the next drive, Carl Frost fumbled, and Alvin Anan for the Bills recovered, which led to a 7-yard touchdown pass from Asensio to Kelly 5 plays later, extending the lead to 26-13. Green Bay drove down to the Buffalo 18-yard line, but on an attempted screen pass, defensive end Mike McCants stepped in front of it for the big man interception and saved that drive for the Bills. Green Bay's next drive would end on an interception as well, and then after a trade of field goals, Buffalo drove 73 yards in 9 plays for another touchdown, another Asensio to Kelly touchdown pass. That made the lead 35-16. The Packers' next drive ended on another interception, leading to another Kelly touchdown, and the Bills were able to coast from there and give the Packers their first loss. So Donald Kelly with a career day, 14 catches, 251 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. Defense forcing 5 turnovers, including 4 interceptions of Joseph Garibay to pull off the upset on Thursday night. The Vikings and Jets had a great game. Also started off fast with both teams scoring on their first possession. Later, after a Minnesota field goal, a interception of Myron Everett led to a short field, and Christian Sinnok, now back from injury, found Zach Gratterall for a 5-yard touchdown pass to give the Vikings an early 10-point lead. They would extend that lead before halftime with a 10-play, 75-yard drive, Sinnok this time finding Joseph Jones, making it 24-10 at the half. They stretched that lead to 30-10 near the end of the third quarter before the Jets finally struck back, Myron Everett finding Nick Suarez for a 34-yard touchdown pass, cutting the lead to 13. And on 3 of the next 4 Viking drives, Sinnok would throw interceptions, but the defense would hold the Jets to a failed 4th down conversion, a punt, and then the Jets finally broke through, Everett finding Will Huber for a 22-yard touchdown. The Jets got a 2-point conversion, which made it technically a 1-score game at 33-25. That was with about 6:15 left to go in the game. The Vikings kept passing, and Sinnok threw his 5th interception of the game. So the Jets had a chance, but were unable to move the ball and forced to punt. And incredibly, on the final drive of the game, Sinnok was still passing. This time he went 6 for 6 for 50 yards, including 4 first down conversions on a 9-play drive, and the Vikings were able to run out the clock and hold on to their 8-point victory. So Sinnok, a wild day in his first week back after missing several weeks with injury. 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Myron Everett, a pair of scores as well. But Vikings bailed out time and time again by their defense, able to come away with the win here. Cardinals were able to pull off a win over the Giants, 35-29. The Giants scored early on touchdown drives of 9 and 11 yards, sandwiched around an Arizona failed fourth down conversion. Arizona was finally able to get on the board in the second quarter, Thomas Gezik scoring from 2 yards out to lessen that Giants lead. Arizona got a defensive stop, then drove 82 yards in 10 plays, aided by a crucial roughing the passer call. That drive ended with fullback Terry Jackson finding end zone to tie the score at 14. In the third quarter, the Giants took the lead back, Jonathan Perez finding the end zone from 11 yards out. Arizona's next 2 drives would get into Giants territory, but they would miss short field goals of 28 and 26 yards, so still down by a touchdown. But they would equalize with Patrick Johnson on a rare rushing touchdown to tie it at 21. Then in the fourth quarter, Thomas Gezik took over and would give them their first lead of the game with a 30-yard touchdown run. The Cardinals defense then got a stop, and they got great field position off the punt return, drove 48 yards for a game-sealing touchdown, Johnson finding Greenberg for 4 yards. That made it 35-21. Arizona would miss a chance with about 4 minutes to go to extend the lead, missing a field goal. That would give the Giants field position and time to drive down, score a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion for the final score, but there were only seconds left. Arizona was able to run out the clock and preserve the win. Great day from Paul Canna of the Giants with 122 yards and a touchdown. Thomas Gezik still the NFL rushing leader by a solid mile, with 234 yards today and a pair of touchdowns on 32 carries. The Bengals scored early and often as they upset the Dallas Cowboys 48-24. On the third play of the game, Cincinnati outside linebacker Tim Aguilar forced and recovered a fumble, and it took Donald Gurvich only one play to find tight end John Hendrickson for a 29-yard touchdown. Bengals scored 7-0, and they were off. The next Dallas drive, Vladimir Dawson fumbled, recovered by the Bengals, led to a Madruga 4-yard touchdown catch. Jesse Noel was intercepted on the next drive. That led to a second Madruga touchdown and a 21-0 lead for the Bengals. Dallas would finally get on the scoreboard when Jesse Noel found Shavala for a 2-yard touchdown. But after that was a Cincinnati field goal, a Cowboys 3-and-out, a Cincinnati touchdown, and another Cowboys fumble when, after that, the first half mercifully ended with the Bengals up 31-7. They would extend that lead to 45-10 in the fourth quarter and put their backups in for the remaining 15 minutes, coasting to the victory. Huge game for David Taylor, 235 yards and 3 touchdowns. Donald Gurvich, a trio of touchdowns as well, as the Bengals put up 48 in defeating the defending champs. It was a very bizarre first half when the Colts played the Rams. Halftime score was 3-3. The Rams got into Colt territory 5 times, had to settle for 5 field goal attempts, and missed 4 of them. So the Colts were still tied despite giving up a whole bunch of yards in the first half, and actually took the lead in the third quarter on a Gary Freitag touchdown run. But that kind of sparked something in the Rams. They responded in only 3 plays with completions of 49, 18, and then 4 yards for the touchdown to tie it. Then a Gary Freitag interception led to a Rams field goal. They actually made one, making it 13-10. But later it was Avila who was turning it over. He got picked off, and that led to Mitchell Reynolds getting a 5-yard touchdown run, and the Colts retook the lead, 17-13. That lasted until the fourth quarter, when Avila found Anthony Larry for 7 yards and made it 20-17. And then with under 4 minutes to go, Gary Freitag trying to lead a game-winning drive, but threw his third interception of the game, which led to an insurance touchdown from Rams running back Jake Duda from 8 yards out. They missed the extra point, but that was enough to make it a two-score game, and the Rams won it with the final of 26-17. Gary Freitag, over 250 total yards from scrimmage, but 3 interceptions. Avila, 452 yards and a pair of scores for him. And then Mario Cisneros continuing to have an amazing year, defensive tackle for the Rams. 12 tackles, 5 for loss, and a sack. Shout out to Cesare Moulton with 3 sacks, and Jason Bumbarger for a pair of interceptions as well. The Steelers and Falcons had an interesting game. I mentioned in last week's episode that these were 2 of the 3 teams that had not had a close finish yet in the 2025 season. And for a while, it was seeming to go down that pretty one-sided road. Michael Fulmer broke off a 36-yard touchdown run in the second quarter to give the Falcons a 17-7 lead. Pittsburgh would bring it closer when Padilla threw a pick six to Wilfred Price for 25 yards. That brought Pittsburgh back within a field goal. In the third quarter, Atlanta would extend their lead again, Padilla finding Igwebuike for a 51-yard touchdown bomb, making it again a 2-score lead. Michael Fulmer would add his second touchdown of the game after that, 31-14. And again, it seemed like it would end pretty one-sided. But after both teams missed field goals in the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh finally put together a long drive, 78 yards in 7 plays, ending with DeAndre Wieters' 39-yard touchdown run. They got a 2-point conversion, but it was still a 9-point game. So after a stop, they drove down, scored again, Morris finding Paul Giroux for a 15-yard touchdown pass. But the extra point left it a 2-point margin, and the Falcons were able to run out the clock and preserve the close victory, their first close game of the year. Padilla, 291 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Michael Fulmer, 131 yards on the ground for him and a pair of scores. 113 yards for DeAndre Wieters on only 15 carries. But ultimately, it was the Falcons coming away with the win in that one. As for the rest of the Week 7 scoreboard, Cleveland and Tampa Bay both rushed for over 200 yards as a team. Plays of the game were 2 key takeaways for the Browns that led to 2 touchdowns and the final score. Houston at Tennessee. Tennessee's Joseph Cale, in the first 2 minutes, rattled off a 36-yard touchdown run. Missed extra point, made it 6-0. And in the next 58 minutes of football, the teams combined for 19 punts, with Tennessee ultimately winning 9-3. Hucon had an amazing game for the Denver Broncos, scoring 5 rushing touchdowns and putting up 154 yards, leading the Broncos to beat the Kansas City Chiefs 38-17. Vegas scored the first 27 points of the game, en route to a 37-21 victory. They picked off David Chop 3 times and sacked him 4 times. Washington also intercepted Aaron Poole 5 times in their 41-23 victory. Stephen Tabbert had 40 total touches for 225 yards from scrimmage and 3 touchdowns. The Chargers held the New Orleans Saints to only 145 yards of total offense as they blanked them 23-0. On Sunday night, New England defeated San Francisco 27-9. Rashawn Lyons was 20 of 30 for 348 yards and a pair of scores. San Francisco's leading rusher this game, incredibly, was Mike Bates, who outrushed Solano and Nebel put together. And then on Monday night, Detroit dropped 47 on Jacksonville to win their game by 4 scores. Randall Hansen, 29 of 41, 339 yards, and 3 touchdowns with no picks. So, for my players of the week, I mentioned Stephen Tabbert with those 40 touches and 3 touchdowns. David Taylor, a trio of touchdowns for him as well, 235 yards on just 22 carries. Hugh Kahn with the franchise-defining game, 5 touchdowns, over 200 yards from scrimmage on 25 touches. And then, of course, Donald Kelly, 251 yards for him, all receiving, and 4 touchdowns in their victory. On the defensive side, Brett McPhail and Anthony Rizzi with 2 very impressive performances, multiple tackles for loss and takeaways there. Randy Espino continues to be a big play machine for the Washington Commanders. 3 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. And then shout out to Jacob Carlin for being involved in 3 takeaways with 2 forced fumbles and an interception for the Lions. So congratulations on all of those players being named my Players of the Week. A couple new injuries to report. David Sparacino bruised his ankle for the Ravens. He will be out an additional week next week. A couple of big defensive names for the Cowboys still out. Alton Bradfield and Michael DeWitt from that front 7. Both out a few more weeks. Jeremy Pruitt, defensive lineman for the Jaguars, went down with a sprained knee. He'll be out 1 more week. And then Andres Harrison, Larry Arwood, and Melvin Adams continuing to cover from their injuries. Both expected to be back later this season. So this is where the standings are in the AFC. We have 2 remaining unbeatens now, 1 in each conference, both of whom were off in Week 7. So Dolphins still enjoying a 3-game lead in the East. The Titans added some ground by winning and watching everyone else lose. So they got a 2-game lead on the rest of their division. The Browns are actually sneaking into first place now at 4-2, just a half game ahead of the Steelers after the Steelers lost to the Falcons, but it's still very close there. And then things are tied up in the West still with the Broncos and Raiders both at 5-2 atop the division, and the Chargers close behind at 4-3. On the NFC side, Carolina is our remaining unbeaten, a game and a half ahead of the 5-2 Falcons in the South. Washington leading the NFC East by 2 over the 4-3 Cowboys. The Packers still growing strong at 6-1, enjoying a 2.5 game lead in the North. Rams up there at 6-1 as well, ahead of the Cardinals in second place at 3-4, and then down to the Seahawks and the 49ers, who are our new current number 1 seed or number 1 overall pick in the draft at 1-6 after their loss on Sunday night. So, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of work on contracts and value in the last couple of weeks, as I'm sure you could tell by all of my Discord notifications and messages. For this video, I wanted to focus more on kind of the downstream effects, the players and teams that'll have big storylines. But I will link both of the dev diaries in the video description. So just a quick high-level overview. We're boosting the expectations for young players. Our 2022 draft picks are just coming out of their first rookie deals. So this is the first time we have players going from rookie deals to now veteran deals, and wanted to make sure that they were getting paid appropriately. So even though they may only be lower mid-70s right now, we're factoring in all that future growth. They're only 25 years old. Most of them still have 3 to 4 years or more until prime age, and we wanted that to reflect that. So a boost to those expectations. Also slightly changing the value calculation for players as they age. This is mostly to close a loophole where veterans were getting deals heavily backloaded with money they would never actually see. So we've tweaked that formula to value bonus more and salary less and later years less. And then the big one is adding annual pay to negotiations. Basically, there's been an emerging meta where to reach value easily and quickly, you just put all money into bonus. But for players in the league, especially young players who are way far away from prime age, it's not just about value, it's not just about guarantees, it's also about total dollars and how much money total you're making. So to try to incentivize that a little more and mix things up and not just have all bonus all the time be the way to go, we're adding some annual pay expectations. It shouldn't affect too many salaries. Again, it just makes it so that on the really high end, you can't just give 5 years of bonus and reach value really quickly without paying some dollars as well. But again, I will link both of the dev diaries if you want to look more into the details of those. But that's kind of what we're working with as we get into the 2025 extension sequence in the next few weeks. So the first thing, as I mentioned, are 2022 draft picks. These guys have been on relatively cheap rookie deals, and now they're going to be starting to be paid like veterans. The 22 class was not particularly deep, but at the top we do have some real star players who are going to have a big impact on their teams and on their team's bottom lines. The first and most obvious one is Dakota Link, best quarterback to come out of that draft, currently starting for the 6-0 Panthers. He's going to want a contract like some of the better starters in the league. Only 74 overall now, but again, 25 and still growing and at the head of a very potent offense. Houston has a pair of stars. They traded for Elijah Rader and they drafted Ryan Johnson. Both of them have so far picked up the fifth-year options, so they'll have an additional year for both of these guys. Johnson, $4.3 million, and then $14 million for Elijah Rader, which seems high, and it is high, but tackle is a very valuable position, and he's pushing 80 overall at 25. That is not remotely an unfair amount for what he might want for a big contract. So Houston's got has one more year with each of these guys, and then they'll need to think about long-term extensions. Similarly, Mark Soto for the Eagles and Jehu Ginn of the Bears on very pricey fifth-year options. Also, in these numbers, we see the impact of edge rushers now. Soto is an edge rusher, which is why, even though his overall is lower, his fifth-year option is so much higher. So both these guys, again, on picking up one more year for their teams, and then we'll have big extension offers down the road. And then Amara Rodriguez is the last big name of that 2022 class. The Cowboys have said they're going to try to go straight to a big extension, but as a 76 overall, A-plus potential, definitely going to be looking for a big payday there. So these are the big 25-year-olds to watch as they come off their rookie deals, and particularly for Link and Rodriguez, look to sign long-term extensions. But it's not just young players who are the big names looking for big money. We've got Aaron Stokes, also of Carolina, an 86 overall. Strong safety Darrell Lee of the Broncos. Robert Smith of Green Bay, both of them high 80s and only just getting close to prime age. And again, prime age, I talk about, I of course mean the average for their positions. Their actual prime age for those players could be slightly higher or lower. I don't know. We'll continue watching their progressions. Both of those, I think, guys, safe bets to break 90 at some point in their career. A pair of solid defenders for the Chargers, Jesus Gonzalez and Gordon Wilburn, both looking for big extensions. And then two great cornerbacks, one from each conference, the Patriots' Huey Ash and the Saints' Arthur Medrano. All of these names, I think, opening expectations will probably be in the tens of millions, upwards of $10 million a year. Again, there's going to be a whole bunch of negotiations, so several of them could certainly sign more team-friendly deals than that, depending on the mix of bonus and salary and the length. But if you want to get a ballpark of kind of where those negotiations are starting for guys like this, 10, 11, 12, maybe as high as $14 million a year is what you might need to pay some of these guys to guarantee that they will stick around. So big numbers to be passed around for these stars if the teams decide to keep them. And of course, when we talk about extensions, you always end up looking at the quarterbacks, both for the huge numbers that they bring in their contracts, but also for what it means for those franchises. Do you have your guy? Are you going to keep him around? Are you going to have to start looking again? Are you going to have to start drafting again? So here are 5 quarterbacks that I think have the biggest questions. On the expense side, established players who are costing teams a lot of money. The big ones are Miguel Aguilera for the Chargers, Robert Morris for the Steelers, and James Rivera of the Browns. I think Aguilera is probably the strongest to sign. He's done great things over at the Chargers. We'll look a bit at their situation in a couple of slides. They've got a lot of big names to pay. But I think Aguilera is at the top of that list. He's the youngest of the 3, and I think the most likely to sign a big deal. Robert Morris, I'm not sure of. The Steelers have gone back and forth looking at other options, but I think he's had a very strong campaign this year. 80 overall, 30 years of age. I think a strong justification could be made for a long-term deal there. James Rivera is the oldest of these three, and the team did just spend a high draft pick on Dominic Enku out of Purdue in the second round. So this seems like the least likely to make a deal. Rivera's earlier deal was only a 2-year extension, so he's getting paid a lot of money for that short duration. Not sure if the team's going to be willing to keep that going based on his performance and based on who they've got coming up. So those are 3 names in the expense category to look at for what their franchises want to do, what direction they want to go in at the quarterback position. And then on the quality side, I want to call out Yusei Asensio and Rashawn Lyons, both of them 2022 draft picks. So currently, again, we've extended this window a little bit, so these could change. But currently, the Bills have declined Asensio's 5th-year option. They've mentioned they want to work on a long-term deal. Lyons has been accepted for New England. That's $12.8 million he would be making next year, almost fully guaranteed. Although that gives the team another year to decide if they want to keep him around long term or not. Both of these quarterbacks have shown bright spots. They've had struggling moments. So this is kind of the time where we get to see whether these teams really want to invest in these guys for the long haul, or they want to mix things up, go back to the well, and try to find their next quarterback of the future. So again, Buffalo, we might see that coming this year unless they change their mind with a 5th-year option. New England might have one more year with Lions to kind of figure that out. So we've talked about the player side of things and which names to watch in terms of what kind of deals they might sign. I want to focus on a few different teams who have a lot of big names on their lists and are definitely, from a business standpoint, the teams to watch as we get to the end of the 2025 season into extensions. The first one is Dallas Cowboys. No surprise, defending Super Bowl champs. It's hard to pay everybody. They have only about $18.5 million of space next year. I pulled these numbers off of the interface, and I should mention, when I talk about next year's numbers, that's only for the players that are currently on the team. So I'm not talking about paying next year's draft picks, which can easily be 8 to 10 million for teams, and then 15 or more for teams with lots of picks or with high draft picks. So keep in mind that when I talk about space they currently have, it's just for the players currently on their roster and not for draft picks and certainly any free agents they would want to pick up. So Dallas is sitting on just $18.5 million, and that could easily be taken up just by Rodriguez, who is the premier young cornerback in the NFL, and then Michael Dyson, who's come along a little slower, but was, I believe, a second-round pick in that initial draft. So I have to think they want to keep Rodriguez around. Dyson, that might be a quality decision. It might be a money decision, or they might be able to make it work. But even with just those 2 names alone, I think could easily take away the remainder of Dallas's space for next year. And again, not even considering draft picks and so on. Baltimore has a little more to play with in terms of just over $40 million. But they've got 4 big names that are kind of right on that cusp of, they're being starters now, so are we going to pay them to like a starter to continue being on the team, or are we going to go in a different direction? So James Taylor, Clinton Gregerson, Patrick Viola, and Matt Perez, all of them high 60s, low 70s, which is not that impressive, but also you have to consider the context of the draft classes they were in. Last 2 classes have been a lot stronger with a lot more 60 and even low 70s guys as rookies. So for this class, having 4 guys of 69 or better at 25 years old is pretty good. But again, is that good enough to warrant the kind of money they're going to be asking for to be starters in the NFL? I think James Taylor, with the prime age mechanics, probably has the toughest pitch, already being 25-year-old running back. Perez, probably the best, being the highest overall. But yeah, Baltimore's probably got some decisions to make as for what they want to do with some of these edge cases, keep them on or maybe cut them loose. By far, the team with the most and biggest decisions to make are the LA Chargers. Now, they've got $63 million to help make this decision, but Miguel Aguilera is probably the biggest extension in terms of expected value and average annual pay that we're seeing in terms of players who are currently in a contract year. He is the guy at the top of the list. We talked about Jesus Gonzalez and Gordon Wilburn. They've got another great inside linebacker at Nathan Burke. So do they pay Burke and let Wilburn go? Do they try to keep them both in tandem? And then John Warnock has been an absolute takeaway machine for the Chargers and a great player. But he'll be 32 next year. Do they keep him around? Can they afford to keep... Well, I know they can't afford to keep all these guys. Unless they get insanely lucky with contracts and then trade away all their draft picks. So some tough decisions are going to have to be made for the Chargers. We will see who sticks around and who joins the free agency pool. And then the last team I want to highlight is Washington, who is just in a complete cap crunch as it is. They already don't have enough money to pay the people who are coming back, let alone any draft picks, which they still have their first round pick, I believe. And then you've got Angel Lowe, player ID number 1 himself, 74 overall guard. And then Lucia Escarcega as well, 31 years old. Could very well become a cap casualty there. So yeah, Washington has no money. So they can't afford anyone that they would like to return unless they make some serious cuts. But they've pulled off wonders before, so we will see what they do. I ran out of space on the slide. A couple other teams I do want to highlight. Carolina has $57 million, but they have to pay Dakota Link, which you know they're going to do, and then make some decisions regarding two great defensive linemen, Aaron Stokes and Stephen Kaffhammer. Don't know that they can keep all three, so it'll probably be which of those defenders joins the free agency market. Chicago only has $29 million to spread over Jehu Ginn, cornerback Mike Turner, offensive tackle William Rule, just to name the three biggest ones. So some tough decisions coming up for the Bears front office. Green Bay has just under $33 million for guard Robert Smith, and then edge rusher Benjamin Hanbury. So probably could pay both of those and still have money for picks, but it's going to be tight. So again, it's a question of, do you want to keep the guys you have and then not have room for anything else? Or do you want to let somebody go and maybe give yourself a little more flexibility? We'll see what the Packers decide to do. But as you know, when you're a successful team, players want to get paid. Not everybody can. That leads to players moving on, things getting mixed up, which is by design. But yeah, those are some of the teams who have a lot of interesting decisions coming up with the big names on their roster in contract years. So, on the other side of things, we looked at all these teams in a cap crunch. We looked at players that might be moving on if they can't get the money they want. So who might be picking those players up? Who has the deep pockets? Who has lots of cap space? Well, currently, again, on the interface, these are the 8 teams with the most space. We're going to count up, starting with the Detroit Lions, sitting just under $65 million in space. They have a young Randall Hansen and a lot of older players. Some of those older players with big expensive contracts have been dropping off, leaving them a lot of money to play with. Just ahead of them are the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals wiped out most of their space this year, trading a guy who the old administration had given like a 5-year extension. So that was Payne, I believe, the defensive tackle. So the Cardinals moved him, took all that hit in this year, and that's given them a huge amount of space next year to work with. Just short of $70 million are the New Orleans Saints. They've got their quarterback of the future on a cheap deal for 3 more years. Now it's time to build a team around him on both sides of the ball. The Giants have $71 million to help compete in that very difficult NFC East. The Colts, $72.7 million. So they've got Mitchell Reynolds. Gary Freitag will most likely be retiring. He's 35 and in the last year of his deal. So we'll see if they decide to maybe go into free agency to find a bridge quarterback before they can get their quarterback of the future. They certainly have the money to do that. The Patriots have even more, $74 million. Now, currently, 12.8 of that is earmarked for Lyons for his 5th-year option, as we know. But even if they do decide to go through with that, that's still well over 60 to play with in free agency to bring in additional weapons for him. The Tennessee Titans are by far the best team as of their 2025 record to be on this list. They're 2 games in the lead in their division, and they're looking at $74 million in free agency money next year. Again, you've got to pay draft picks as well, but that is serious money to go and build a team in addition to the pieces that they already have. The absolute kings of cap space right now, with over $84 million unmarked next year, is of course the Houston Texans. They've got Ryan Johnson. They've just picked up their quarterback of the future, so they've got those 2 big names. Again, need help on the defense, offensive line, lots of space to fill, lots of places to go, but a lot of money to do that with. So it'll be very interesting to see who they go after and who gets paid big in the free agency market this year. But for right now, as we wait for the trade deadline and extensions to begin, let's talk about next week. We start things off on Thursday night with Chicago going to Indianapolis. A couple of teams hovering right around the 500 mark, looking to stay competitive. In the early slot on Sunday, we have Atlanta going to Carolina, top 2 teams in the South, going head-to-head. Carolina trying to remain unbeaten and extend their division lead. And then Philadelphia at Cincinnati, the latest iteration of that NFC East versus AFC North matchup. In the afternoon slot, Green Bay is going to Tennessee for an interconference matchup of 2 division leaders. And then Pittsburgh will be at Denver in the afternoon as well. In prime time on Sunday night, we have the Cowboys going to Cleveland to face the 4-2 Browns. And then on Monday night, prime time, we have the Rams at 6-1 going to visit the New York Giants. The Giants have a knack for keeping games close. The Rams have a knack for letting opponents stay close. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the final moments of that one. That is all I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. And as I tell all users of all of our sims here at SimSN, good luck and have fun.